Yes.
We all got on here very smooh because
That's
we're
right.
going.
That's because you own that navigator.
Hey. How are you doing? How are you both doing?
Fabulous. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good.
I'm doing well. I just went on a nice walk before this, so I feel very calm.
Mm-hmm.
I did too. I walked for about 4 miles, then played some tennis. Had a good little time.
Yeah.
Wow.
I live on the beach and stared at the water, why not?
That's so crazy. I just started talking to my friend about getting back into playing tennis.
Oh, okay. Do you play tennis too, man?
No, I do not play tennis.
All right. Well, what do you do to chillax?
Oh, I love going to the gym. I'm gonna get myself right back into doing it again because I stopped going for a minute because of work. But I do that. I love sleeping. Okay, I love to sleep.
Oh, okay.
we love to do a little walk. I love enjoying the weather. So
you guys listen to music?
Oh yes.
What kind of music do you guys like?
I like neo soul, old R&B.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sierra.
No, I was just gonna say I like all types of music, but I was just because recently I've really been getting into meditating to like the sound of music, just because stressful times. So recently I really just listen to like the drums and the beats and everything, and it's been helping me. So I've been getting more to like rock music, honestly.
Rock music, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a jazzaholic. I got like 28,000 jazz albums, so I has jazz.
That's exciting. I once went to a jazz club. It was really fun. Like I really want to go back, honestly.
It's funny, like African Americans and kids who live in France and London and places like that, they really love our jazz music, but here it's unappreciated. I guess that's why they migrated there as opposed to doing it here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It definitely is an art, though.
It is.
Know, you always, like, when I went, I was looking because they're like, you can pay attention and you see them all playing off of each other and you really listen. You see when I went, I was really trying to pay attention and I saw it. So I was really happy.
Did you feel it, though?
Yes, you can really feel it.
Okay.
Up there. I wanted to be up there.
Right?
And,
Okay.
And I saw them competing with each other. I could see that, like, there was like a little, like, it was really fun. It was a fun time. I want to go back.
Okay. So how long have you guys been doing this Instagram cast?
Yes, I was just about to say we're about to get started because as people come in. But we've been doing our Therapy Thursdays. This is our 4th Therapy Thursday.
Okay.
And we're here with the lovely Dr. Joe Carr, who is a sports psychologist. I'm Sierra Luter. I will be moderating for tonight. I'm an intern with the project. I've done a lot of work with the Code of Silence as it relates to the Black community, more so about mental health and sexual assault. I'm also a film student at NYU, so I've explored that whole realm as well. I know Davon is also into film as well. Yes. So Davon.
Nice to meet you, Dr. Carr. I'm Davon Harris. I am a college intern with UHMP. I do so much things, including videography, photography. I edit. I do everything.
You're like a one-stop shop.
Yes, I am. I'm everything right here. So nice to meet you again.
Nice to meet both of you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And if you would like to say a couple words about yourself.
Well, I'm a clinical sports psychologist, been working in the area of sports and community psychology for the last 40 years. And I developed the NBA Rookie Transition Program, which if I go in the Hall of Fame, that's what I go in the Hall of Fame for.
That's amazing. While we're getting started, after this video, we will recommend everyone go to our channel and watch a conversation that was had between you and your student or your former player who shared an experience about coping with his uncle who committed suicide. And in that video, as you all will go see after this, your student, he shared his letter. And at the end of it, your point of it saying it was to release and to let go. And I think that that's a really big point as we get into COVID and people experiencing the most trying times of their life. And at the bottom and at the most that you can do or the best that you can do is to surrender and is to let go. And if you could just elaborate a bit more on how sports and activity and exercise, I know I just said I do walking. Something else I do is I do yoga. And recently as I sit and I let my emotions sit and I relax and release, I realized that a lot of my tension goes away. So basically you could just talk more about how much is important to let go, and tying that into how sports can also help us to let go and to release.
I think there's two words that are precursors, to getting involved and let go. First, you have to commit. You have to say, okay, this is something that I am going to do. And then the second thing, you have to stick. You have to stick to it. So if you don't have those two words at the top of your vocabulary, at the top of your forehead, it's going to be hard because, everybody says, I'm going to lose weight. Well, I'm going to go for a walk today. But then, something comes along and you don't do it. Or if you do it, you don't do it as hard as you need to. So, when I'm working with athletes, particularly at a professional level, it's always difficult for them to find something that they like to do because they're so wrapped up into that thing that they get paid for. So finding something outside that bubble is really complicated. So if they use those two words, like I'm going to commit to playing Scrabble, or I'm going to commit to taking a walk with my dog, or I'm going to go to the beach, I'm going to stick with that routine. Now, we've got something. And that tends to be a stress reliever. But just coming up with those two words, we don't talk about commit and stick because that's not something we think about. We just say, oh, I'm just going to do it. Well, just almost like saying, okay, it's a new year and I'm going to make a New Year's resolution. And we make all these grandiose, things that we're going to do. Or from now on, I'm not going to eat as much, or I'm going to take more time with myself and I'm going to write in my journal, all these things. But again, they don't commit. They don't stick to it. Hopefully I answered your question, but I try to make this as simple as possible.
Well, no, you did. And that's true. I know you mentioned tennis, and back when I used to play at my tennis center, something that they always said was 3 in the row starts the flow. And, that same, message of committing and sticking to it. And my question is, as we're talking about coping and ways to cope, do you believe, or I know we just said, well, no, as we know, sports should not be your only way of coping. Do you have other, recommendations for ways of releasing, whether it be via journaling, meditation, other ways that people can work through their emotions?
Well, sounds so simplistic, but it makes a lot of sense. Finding somebody that you can talk to is a real big deal. And it's hard because a lot of people, don't like to listen. But if you can find somebody that can really listen to you and then you can talk, it doesn't have to be anything deep. I mean, you can talk about politics, you can talk about things you did during the course of your day, or you can talk about, something that you'd like to do. But just having that exchange with someone who's really paying attention to you, I think that's a real form of release. Another thing that I think, we talked about music, listening to music is a really big deal because it allows you to get outside of yourself and to do what I call mental traveling. You can go back to a space and time, whether with your girlfriend or your partner or an activity, like what were you doing when Smokey Robinson was playing? What were you doing when Maze was playing, and a particular record, a particular song, a particular dance. Dancing is another thing that I think it's underrated, like me, as old as I am, I'll get in front of the mirror and I'll start dancing myself. And, and I'll dance for about 5 or 6 minutes and I'll do it aerobically. And, it just relieves me, in such a soothing way. Massages, everybody can't afford to get a massage all the time, but that's another way of getting a release, But yeah, I think that those are basic economic ways, of allowing yourself to chill.
No, thank you for that.
Yeah, that's good. It was a question that I read in the comments that I really thought we should really highlight. Someone said, I know you work with a lot of famous players. How does mainstream popularity affect people's mental health, positively or negatively?
When you say mainstream, what do you mean?
Like people that are like really known, like
okay.
There's really like people see them a lot. They're really great, or stuff like that.
Well, believe it or not, a lot of what I call high octane people, when they're not in their theater, whether it's their football or tennis or basketball, they have a hard time chilling. I mean, they really do, because in their mind, they always got the go button on. They feel like they're always under siege. They have to perform. So now when they're not performing, what am I doing? What do I do with myself? So, trying to get that person to unwind, is really difficult, because they can make a lot of excuses as to why they can't. But, they're what I call high energy people. They've always got something to do. And so being alone with their own thoughts, it's almost like it's a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
So meditation is an easy way to do it. And the best one that they all like when I suggest is to put together what I call a me journal. And what I mean me journal, what did you do today that you appreciated about yourself? You have to think about that, And so if you journal that, what did you do to appreciate your own thoughts or your own feelings? That level of thought and detail, causes you to kind of dig down a little deeper. And then as a result of that, you bring stuff up. And then at the end of the week, you look and see what you wrote down. You say, oh, my God, that's just amazing. But, when you're dealing with a famous football player or a soccer player or a tennis player, a person who's always traveling, the last thing that they want to do in most cases is to do an activity. So getting them to do something where they're alone with themselves is the best option. That's what I found. And sometimes you just have to be creative, whether it's playing Scrabble. That sounds like a crazy thing, but I have a lot of guys and ladies who are high-octane people. They like to learn new words. And that's a very simplistic thing. Or another one is drawing. Drawing is another one. Not necessarily painting, but just drawing. And like I'll tell a friend, why don't you do some theme drawing? And that is, write down 5 or 6 words: cloudy, hairy, funny, confusion, and just draw. What that means to you. Yeah. And that's one way of letting it go. Was that interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, you gave so many good notes. I was honestly in the back of my head, like, I'm definitely going to do the me journal. Everything. And I think a lot of people can really relate to that as far as, always wanting to produce or always needing to produce. When we're talking about, college students or students in general, or just adults and people, but especially if we're talking about students and overworking ourselves, this constant need to perform. I know what you just said as far as having too much energy. The other day I was like, okay, I need to sit down, I need to meditate. And then all of a sudden it was like, I thought it in my hands, my feet. And I was like, I do have a to-do list. I should be doing that. And I was sitting there, and then, the basic things for meditation.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, just trying to find ways to do things with my hands. Like, that's why I started getting into yoga. And I even started doing Tai Chi, honestly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that kind of helped me, get into the flow. That's really been
You are seriously disciplined, isn't she?
Yeah, it's very.
I want to be like you when I grow up. Tai Chi, woo!
I like it. But I mean, as you talk about, you work with these, these famous players, these high professional athletes. A big thing that they have to do is stay strong and, mentally motivated in the most trying times, And I know you gave, recommendations or things, you do to, just stay sane as far as, your me journal, you meditate. But when things get really tough, when things get really hard, what's some advice that you give them to, that in the most, pressure of situations, how do they stay strong?
Okay, so let's talk about doing a game. One of my big thing is quick recovery. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, when people are playing in the game where things are not going well for them individually, they miss shots or they drop a pass, or the referee's not calling shots. I have something called a power clap. And I invented this because it has to be quick, it has to be neurological, it has to be psychological, and it has to be combustible. The power clap goes like this. And so you let all the energy go at once. So you'll see some of my clients on TV after a missed shot or something bad happens, they'll put their hands in there and let it go. And as a result of that, they're able to stay in the moment, because the longer you dwell on frustration, it carries over to the next play, to the next play, to the next play. So having quick recoveries is a really good thing. And then if you have sometimes you can have a whole team who feels like they just made horrific mistakes because they got behind by 15 to 20 points. I tell the coach to call a timeout, and then they do a group power clap where everybody just lets it go. Boom, boom. And it's really cool because then they come out ready to fight. Okay, it's almost like excreting gas. Now you let that gas out, you're ready to go in there and start fighting again. So it's a very out-of-the-box way to stay in the moment. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And honestly, and then Davon, I don't want to take up all the time.
You good.
No, but I just want to say I started reading this book on like the power of our subconscious mind. And something that I started doing is like whenever I start overthinking, I say, stop. I'm really loud, or at least I did that the other day. And that's kind of
shout it out?
Yeah.
I said, stop.
Did it work? Did it work?
It worked the first time.
Well, some people, sometimes people use, different prompts. Some people use rubber bands. Because some of us are.
I used to do that.
Some people are what they call perfectionistic thinkers. They got to get everything right. And so whenever they find themselves, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that, just flick your wrist. That works for some people. Some people have to tap their shoes, tap their feet on the ground, a couple of anything to take the emphasis off of the obsessive thought, is one way of kind of staying in the moment. Because, those of us like yourselves, who are out there making it happen every day, you're flooded with a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things, a lot of expectations. So it's easy to do two things, to catastrophize, think the worst is going to happen, or think that, you can never get it right. Those two things going in different directions can really get you to get overstressed. So you have to know how to manage those catastrophizing thoughts. And you have to know how to manage, those thoughts that make you feel like whatever I'm doing is not good enough. And, that we can be our own worst critic. Yeah. And by doing that, that leads to a lot of stomach ailments, a lot of headaches, and pill popping and stuff like that. So we don't want to go there, right? We don't want to catastrophize, and we definitely don't want to be perfectionistic because we all make mistakes.
That's really good. We do have another question from the comments. We have a question that says, "What advice Dr. Carr do you have for high school students who recruiting was cut short due to COVID? Like, how do they stay positive and move forward, knowing that they may not get into their dream college?"
That's a very difficult one to answer because, well, the good news is that they have something called the portal now where the kids, who they've all been given an extra year. So if they're at a college, and they don't like where they are, it's like free agency. They can go to another school. So the kid who's in high school who hasn't had a chance, to do that, he's competing with he or she who's a veteran who's already proven themselves to be worthy college level players. They have to compete, and they don't really have the film clips to compete with. So that kid, may have to do something out of the box. And what I've been advising some of the kids that I've been talking to who are quote unquote primetime players, but they haven't been seen, I say, call the coach and say, look, I'm willing to pay my way to the college to do a free trial. I want to have a free visit. And the visit will be at my expense. I just want you to look at me. Now, when you do that, you take away all the excuses from the coaches and all those other quote-unquote players who got the film and they played last year. They're not going to do that. And so that's going to stick out in his mind. And the coach is going to say, well, if he or she is willing to pay their way to visit, to talk to me at their own expense and then try out, this must be a kid who, first of all, is very energetic, who's very committed, who's a team player, who's willing to be coached. They're checking all the boxes. And so that's what you have to do. And I know everybody, can't do that. But that's what separates the championship level teammates from the ordinary person. The championship level teammates are willing to do just a little bit more, even though it's inconvenient, because COVID has shut a lot of things down. But if you really want to show people what you can do, you know what? I'm going to do it.
Yep.
I don't know if I answered your question, but
you did. Yeah.
You did.
No, I think you definitely did. I mean, it's a difficult situation. It's a tough situation to be in, especially when you've been working your whole life. Most of the time when people are trying to get in for college for scholarships, they're playing competitively. I know that was the main reason I didn't want to.
And then you got your family members. See, they're your biggest critics. I mean, they're living vicariously through you. Not all the parents. I want to make sure all the parents out there, but a lot of the parents,
they are.
They're saying, I need you to do this. They're not saying this, but they are saying this. I need you to do this because you're in our family. We expected you. I drove you to Little League, blah, blah, blah. And I bought you tennis shoes. You owe me. They're not saying that, but they're saying that. And so it's that pressure, you know, from the family member on the kid too. So, you know, you parents out there who are listening to this, you know, make a list of schools that your kid wants to go to. If it's a junior college, or whether it's Howard University or American University, or if it's whatever it is, get the number, you know, of an assistant coach. Tell them, you know, who you are. Tell them that your kid is hungry and interested and willing, you know, to come so that you can take a look at them for free.
For free.
That free thing is a big word. And, you know, you'd be surprised what doors open up. I did that for a kid the other day, and I can't tell you the school because it's confidential, but he ended up getting a scholarship. And they can't actually visit the school until the 1st of June, which was next week. But this coach, when he heard that, and he says, look, I don't have any film on you, but if you're willing to travel, in this case, this kid's going to travel 2,500 miles to this school, and they live in Washington, D.C., that coach was so impressed. You know, he says, look, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I'm going to give you a scholarship. And that's deep.
That is.
That doesn't happen every time. Everybody listen to me. That's not going to happen every time.
Yeah.
But everybody wants somebody who has fire, who has enthusiasm and passion, you know, and I think those are life, should I say, behaviors that we need in any kind of relationship. But if you have that for your sport, man, you're going to make a coach, male or female, very happy.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that's a wonderful, it's true. Honest, it's a true message. I can't get the words out, but it is. Because some of my mom, she always used to tell me is, you know, most people are touchable. You know, you can always go a different door, a different route, email the assistant, the other person, the head person, the other person, the janitor, whoever, you know, there's always more than one way to get in. And I think that's true, especially, you know, for students out there, not students, I keep saying that, but for athletes out there who are listening and who are feeling, you know, upset because this is not a realistic outcome. And for those who are upset and have to accept this acceptance and have to transition into life now outside of a, you know, a competitive sport, because that's a whole realm that you're stepping outside of. I mean, most of the time, that's your life.
Yeah.
And you gotta shake your ego at the door.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're trying to get in, I mean, I know a lot of us athletes, you know, have been pampered. We have been entitled. We have been taken care of. But once you leave high school, you know, you got to start all over again. You got to hit the restart button. They don't know you like that. So you're going to have to say, you know what? I'm willing. I'm ready to be a yes man. Yes, 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 yes. And some people might say, well, I ain't no punk. I'm not going to lower my. Well, you know, this is okay. This is okay to be a punk. If you have to be a punk to show a person that you're hungry, let's eat it. Let's go all the way. Let's eat that meal. Yeah. And if you can show a coach that you are that passionate and that enthusiastic, they will find a place for you. Because at the end of the day, they want to build not just a good person. They want to build a good culture, a culture that nurtures growth. So if you get a lot of people, you know, on a team that are yes people who are willing to say, yes, coach, whatever you want me to do, that's a winning environment. And so sometimes, and I'll say this, it's not always the best players that make it work. Sometimes it's the best team that makes it work. And so I've got those intangible skills to connect with people because I bring love and I bring joy and I bring enthusiasm, you know, to the situation. You can't imagine how much that's worth.
No, that's true. And I mean, I think my next question that I was going to ask was, you know, what happens? What if you don't make it or you don't? But I think everything I'm feeling is there's no what if it doesn't happen. It's just will it happen if it's not happening right now? And I mean, you know, a main message of, you know, just pushing forward and hoping, you know, that anybody listening is around that support system that does help them push forward and does help them to keep going. Because
and to that point, when you're trying to, you know, be a part of a team, you don't think about if I don't make it, because if you are being a part of a team, you're joining a sisterhood and a brotherhood. You're developing lifelong relationships, and those lifelong relationships is a network, and that network can parlay itself to a lot of different things, including but not limited to another job, you know, another opportunity. So, you know, there's life after sport, but more importantly, if you are in sport, make sure the relationships that you have with your teammates are lifelong lasting ones. That this is going to be your sister. Make sure, and that sounds cruel, make sure that you have a teammate that they can tell you that your breath stinks. Because if they can tell you that your breath stinks, then that's the level of honesty that you're going to have, that you're going to need. And you can always take that honesty and transfer that into other sectors in life, and that's going to work for you. That's like a credit card that will accrue interest.
We have another question from the audience. What do high school coaches say when you say the athletes may need mental health treatment? Like, if you ever told a coach they need some help, what do they say? Like, are they cool with it? Are they supportive? Like,
Heck no. Are you on medication? No, it's kind of an oxymoron. On one hand, athletes are seen as strong, supposed to be strong and virile and be able to handle it. On the other hand, we have feelings too.
Yeah.
But the coaches, per se, they spend all their time pouring into other kids. And just me saying that, what do you think they're doing with their kids? Their kids are being placed on hold.
Mm-hmm.
That creates a real imbalance. Another thing is, especially the college coaches, everybody knows what their salaries are, how much they make. So when their wives go into the grocery store, if they had a good game or a bad game, their wives have to feel the brunt of all of that. That's another stressor. So now the coach has to balance his home life with the player life, and he's kind of caught in between, or she's kind of caught in between. How do I make all of this work? So it is a recipe that's kind of created for a stress disorder, depression, anxiety, and stuff like that. So you typically can't reach a coach and let them know, hey, you got a problem, until something, quote unquote, bad happens. Now, I like to be preventative, and I like to go through my checklist and say, if this happens, be aware. But typically, they don't hear you, until after a couple bad losses, a player gets in trouble or something like that. Now you got their attention, But I'm blessed because, I've been doing this for a long time. And so usually when I take on a client, they know that I come to win. And so a lot of the coaches, they want a part of that. And if receiving mental health tools will make them better, I have the credibility to give them that suggestion. It wasn't always like that, but after years and years of working with teams and helping kids get to the pros, and some coaches, getting to the NBA, they say, okay, well, you must know what you're talking about, because whatever you're feeding them, they're eating it, and it must be working. But typically, coaches are not receptive to mental health, even though, we're talking a lot about it now. It's a conversation right now, but it's not something that people are really jumping on. And what I do is I organize a call, with about 25 or 30 coaches once a week. And we just take different topics to talk about. And the purpose for doing that is just to get them talking, So one conversation we might have is, free time. What are you managing your free time? So if they can see how Coach A and how Coach B, is managing their free time, okay, they become mirrors for each other. So, and I mention that because free time could be a trigger for some coaches, because some of them, because of so much stress on their back, they could use that time to drink, or they could use that time to overeat, or basically not take care of themselves. So by me having these once a week calls for these coaches, they get a chance to say, hey, I didn't know you felt that way. Or you do the same thing. And this, becomes like a brotherhood within itself. So what I'm hoping to gain out of that small community is a support system that they can lean on each other. And as a result of that, we can slowly, interweave mental health topics and issues into that group and normalize it. Does that make sense?
No, that's honestly, that makes a lot of sense. It's very smart. I was just going to say, everything you're saying links back to your initial thing of talking to people, community. I mean, that's an overall message, I think, right now. just getting people back, you know, connecting with people, and then through there having those important conversations. Because it's surprising to me, because I would think that, you know, mental health, at least among the players, maybe, I guess not the coaches, would be more prevalent, but definitely, you know, making sure that those conversations are had and held is important.
Now, me, you know, like, that's part of, now, I don't call it mental health when I'm dealing with a team, you know, so if you can imagine, when I go in, I'm dealing with a team in a circle. So we're all in a circle for 12 or 13 hours a day. And then I have a basketball. So when somebody wants to talk, I call the basketball the cake. So, you know, they have to pass the cake around. So I'll pick different topics, you know, and so I'll give you an example. What's the connection between HIV and locker room poison? Okay, so HIV and locker room poison, HIV is something that happens to you real slow and it breaks your system down. Well, poison could be if I'm jealous. So how does jealousy, or how does being envious, how could that break a team down? And so in that conversation, I may pass the cake to someone and I might say, what's the connection between, you know, HIV and locker room poison for you? And say, well, you know, I've had instances of being jealous with Bill last year because, you know, Bill wouldn't pass me the ball. So that's not a mental health issue per se, but it has mental health implications because if we don't deal with that, it breaks the team down.
That's good.
It can relate to losing.
No,
as a result of that, people's self-esteem gets destroyed, their dreams get destroyed, their draft status gets all that, you know. So I'm using different terms in order to educate people about mental health in a non-traditional way. Does that make sense?
No, it does. You're like helping them work through their problems and their issues that they may not even know that they have with each other. That's, you know, me. I want to know the interesting. I want to be the gossip. Like, ooh, who had drama?
Yeah. Who got it?
And so, well, you know, I never talked to a psychologist before. I didn't know a psychologist talk like that. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, good. If I demystified it, let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That was great. This is great.
Okay, well, I want to thank you so much for joining. Davon, do you have any additional questions? Let me look in the chat.
No, I don't see any more questions in the chat, for real.
Okay.
Well, I hope we covered, you know, a reasonable amount of topics and it made sense.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We did.
I think a main message, you know, for tonight I got was really just building community and trust. And I thank you so much for joining and telling us. I mean, your job is very interesting. As I said,
it is.
The fly ball.
There you go. There you go. Your peeping Tom voice.
This is great. Thank you so much, Dr. Carr.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys.
All for joining. Thank you.
God bless. All right.
Have a nice night.